Hello, everybody. How y'all doing?
Don't guess maybe better than you. I don't know.
You are. I'm going to tell you about myself first. Then I'll tell you about the guy that I'm training tonight. My name is Joe Bozeman. I've lived in Kennesaw, Georgia most of my life. Still live here. Plan on being here forever, so. Anyway, I'll get on with this. Uh, by the way, this is my great-grandfather. His name is James Skelton. This is my great-grandmother, which played by us. Back there.
You gotta kick it up. Get it over your mouth.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm not very good for these modern day appliances. I will try. How many of you live in Kennesaw, by the way? All right. Well, I guess I'll be here till I die. But anyway, my name is James Skelton.
And I'm Mary Victoria Chalker Skelton.
I live now in the old Confederate soldiers' home in Atlanta. Not a very nice place to live, but it's plenty to eat. I smoke a lot. I chew a lot of tobacco. And think of the old times back in Kennesaw. But I was born in a shanty shack, dirt-floored shanty shack by the railroad tracks on the Western Atlantic Railroad in Big Shanty, Georgia. We were dirt poor, and I lived there in that dirt-floored shack with my mother and my father. Soon she had a younger brother of mine and a younger sister. My dad was killed in a railroad accident, construction accident. So it was left, there's three of us there. We didn't have any money, no money coming in at all. And I heard that there was a job open in Cartersville, Georgia, for a fireman and a water boy. So one Saturday morning, I decided I'd go up there and apply for one of those jobs. I walked to the Kennesaw Depot, bought a round-trip ticket to Cartersville. There was a train sitting there while the crew was in the Lacey Hotel eating breakfast. It was pulled by a locomotive named the General. Had three boxcars behind it, one combination car, and one regular coach. So I climbed on the combination car, and I knew everybody who lived in this place called Big Shanty. And a whole group of men walked by the car that I was in. So I raised the window to look and see what they were doing. In a minute, I heard them unhook the car that I was in from the rest of the train. I didn't realize it, but I was about to see one of the most daring things of the American Civil War. The train went out of sight up to northbound, and people came running out of the Lacey Hotel hollering, "Somebody stole our train." The engineer, conductor, and the railroad official started chasing the train. I was only 14. I should have gone and chased it with them. It really would have made this a much better story now. But I went home. Nobody understood exactly what had happened at that point. Most people thought they were deserters from Camp McDonald, which was right across the tracks. But to come to find out, they were Union spies that had stolen that train. Well, I didn't make it to Cartersville that day. I needed a job, so I thought the best thing I could do was join the Confederate Army. So I walked across to Camp McDonald's, which is right here where we're standing now. And they said, "How old are you, son?" I said, "I'm 14. They said, "Well, you have to be 15 to be in the Confederate Army. But we can swear you in and you become one of the Georgia State Guards," which is basically part of the Confederate Army, but it's under the state and it's not under the Confederacy itself. Well, I hired onto that job and it was pretty neat. I guarded the railroad tracks from what's now Atlanta to Chattanooga. And it was a pretty good job. I'd get to ride the top of boxcars. And I was at home just about every night because I was with my mother here in Big Shanty, Georgia. Well, that was a good job. But then I got orders to report to Augusta, Georgia. I didn't know what for, but when I got to Augusta, there was another train sitting there, and it was full of Union prisoners. It was heading to a place called Andersonville, Georgia. I would not be in combat, but believe me, being in Andersonville was probably worse in combat. So, I guarded prisoners there for a while till they closed Andersonville, and they moved the prisoners to other prison camps that were out of the state of Georgia, so they did not send us there. So they sent us back to Atlanta, and Sherman had already come through Atlanta, so it was a clear shot to get to Atlanta from Big Shanty. I didn't have anything to do much at this point, but they assigned me to a unit that was going up in the North Georgia mountains and arresting deserters from the Confederate Army and some guerrilla fighters from the Union Army that were up there. We captured quite a few of these guys, and we walked them back to Kingston, Georgia. When we got to Kingston, we were told that General Lee had surrendered at Appomattox. And they told us we could go home and let the prisoners go that we had. So we did that. I walked back on the Western Atlantic Railroad from Kingston to Big Shanty, and it was a terrible sight. Everything was destroyed. When I got to Big Shanty, I found my mother and my younger brother and sister living in a wrecked rail car. Real sad. They said that both armies had been through Big Shanty, Georgia, and they survived on what little was given to them by the Confederates and the Union Army. So, here I am again. Nothing to do, no money, and then I got a job working for the Reconstruction government. It was a pretty bad job too. We were digging up the corpses in and around the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain. They were buried in very, very shallow graves, and barrel hogs and wild animals had rooted all through them. So that job lasted for about 2 weeks. And then I got another job working for the Macon and Western Railroad. I worked down there for a while. On March the 1st of that year, I took a leave of absence and I went back to Big Shanty, Georgia, to marry Victoria. And so I went up there and we got married.
James and I had 5 children, and each of them were as involved with the railroad as he was. You could say he was part of our legacy. Now, our firstborn son, W.B., now he got his start on the Western Atlantic Railroad as a brakeman, but he was tragically killed when an engineer failed to notice the signal to stop. Now, it broke our heart, and James was sick at the time. I didn't think we were going to make it through that. Our second son, Lige, now he got his start as a brakeman on the railroad, and he worked his way up all the way to conductor. Now, he met and married a lady named Effie, and they had 5 children, and he would even become mayor of Kennesaw in 1922. One of his children would get married years later in front of the general. Now, our third son, George, he also got his start as a brakeman, worked his way up on the railroad, again, all the way up to conductor. And finally, our youngest, Edward, now he was the first man to be drafted for World War I from Cobb County. Thankfully, he was gone for less than a year. He had met and married his wife, Irene. When he came back, they had 3 children, and he too got his start on the railroad as a brakeman and worked his way up on the railroad. Now, our daughter, she met and married a nice boy from Smyrna named Sidney Arrington. He was a railroad man too. He had got his start as a brakeman. And everybody, they all lived here with us in Kennesaw. Our children, our grandchildren, and even our great-grandchildren. And we had a happy life here in Kennesaw.
After we got married, we bought a house on what's down North Main Street in Kennesaw. We lived there for a while. Then Vic died. I was totally destroyed. But I had to keep on. My sons and my daughter would hire 2 housekeepers for us, for me, and I lived there till they decided to check me into the old Confederate soldiers' home in Atlanta. When I was there, I was chosen to be a honored guest at the premiere of Gone with the Wind. It was the first and only movie that I ever saw in my life. They walked me in there and sat me down, and there was a vacant seat next to me, and they walked in Vivian Lee, and she sat down beside me. She was a very beautiful lady and very nice, but I bet you she couldn't fry chicken and make green beans like Vic could. I'm still there. I'm 93 years old. I'm not very happy. I have not had the only good times I had in my life was that time that Victoria and I were married. The rest of the time was pretty miserable. However, we'll continue keeping on. Anybody got any questions?
How old were y'all when you got married?
How old were we when we got married?
Right, yeah, right.
I'm not exactly sure.
And I hate to say this, I don't remember the year either. It was, well, approximately. We got married sometime in late 1860s, I believe. Yeah, when you get to a certain age, it's hard to remember the dates. I was just wondering if y'all were still teenagers when you got married. It was right after the war. Oh, no, we were not. I think we were at least into late teens.
Yeah, I had been in the state guards for a while, so. But I tell you what, I've got the whole story at home. I went there. Okay. Thank you. And